dear colleagues, we continue our work, and now we are going to speak about decentralization reform. We had elections in renewed communities, and now the most interesting starts. So new unified communities obtain new power and what should be done. And now we're going to speak with people who know about this reform a lot, and they can tell us in detail about it. So Anatoliy Tkachuk, Science and Development Director at Civil Society Institute, Mykola Fursenko, Head of Ukrainian Association of Village Municipal Councils. Thank you. So they are given the floor. Good afternoon. Today, we are going to speak briefly about the topic that is very important for this period of reforms in Ukraine. What I mean? Elections happened, and these were local elections. 182 communities were formed their councils, and they also elected heads of cities, towns, and villages. So for half a year, Ukraine made a record about 1,000 communities unified, and they unified in this half a year. And retrospectively, Estonia, Latvia, they gathered about 10%. They gathered 10% only during half a year. So now there's a second step. It's very complicated, but very important for us. These unified communities should become new subjects of new entities of communities, and they should have resources in order to work properly. And the first problem are challenges that we got because not all the package of documents was adopted. And the second one is that councils and heads, they have the problem how to start their work. And I would like to attract your attention to this picture. And we see here at the example of one oblast, this is Khmelnytskaya Oblast, where the most communities united. We had 4 types of regions that differ among themselves according to the power structure. In the first category, none of the communities gathered, so they know how to work in this type of legislation. And the second type is a region where the majority of region gathered, united, and there are several villages that didn't join. So they have additional problems how to divide the power between councils of those who didn't join and those who joined. And the third type of region is when all the region gathered in one community, and they have one council and one council there. So we have powers of Oblast Council and Region Council. And the last one is when all the region, like Bilotserkivskyi, has unified communities, 3 communities, and in what way they should realize the power of local administration and council. And fifth type, Radetsky, when one part of the region gathered and created a community, and the rest remained the same as it was. So the results of the first stage require changes in legislation. So these challenges, we try to separate them from each other and classify. First, the first challenge. The second challenge, there's no supervision on the activity of local government. Article 144 that envisages this observation wasn't implemented properly, and there was general supervision of the prosecutor's office, but now we don't have this so vacuum in the sphere. The third challenge, the possibility to fire the mayors and heads of city councils. And none of the political forces has no control, so there can be any configuration. And the law on self-government has some ambiguity in the issue of firing the head of the councils, for example. And we saw it at the example of Cherkasy, Chernivtsi, Novodnestrovsk, and many others. Challenge 4. Possibility to show distrust to the newly elected heads of councils, and people expressed distrust in those regions where the former leaders of Party of Regions won, and we have some problems in the sphere, and some people use ambiguity in the provisions of the law. And the fifth challenge is the possibility that the decisions of the council has some discrepancy with the law and has the dominant influence. And if we remember the case when Sevastopol and Kerchensk Feodosia councils, they adopted the decisions on entering of NATO ships, and there were councils that introduced regional languages. So there's no even so the sixth challenge is impossibility to control land resources. Now joint communities have the territory of 130 kilometers, and we don't have the plan how to plan this territory of the community. That's why the land in the united community, they are outside the control of this community council. That's why these issues should be solved properly, and we prepare draft laws to solve these issues. So this is the first block that is in the competence of the Supreme Council of Ukraine, and they should, the ministries should propose such draft laws, and maybe my colleague will tell you more, but I would like to tell you topic things. So newly elected heads call me, and they don't understand what they should do, and they say that everything is lost. Nothing is lost. We should clearly understand that we were transferred to the higher league, and now we are united communities, and we should be powerful, and as to our influence, they should be like the cities of regional importance. And as to the number of population, they are bigger than the most regional cities. So they should prepare the first session, because after the results, there should be a first session, and it should be prepared, and that should be done by a newly elected head. And we should address two key dates. And these are before 1st of January and after 1st January of 2016. Before the date, despite the communities are united, they can't realize all the powers that are in the competence of a series of regional importance. And these communities are working as cities of regional importance. And after 1st of September, these communities will work in absolutely different regime. This is the regime of the oblast city, and there should be transformation of the whole system of the bodies of local government and budget institutions that work in the framework of this territory. And there should be one understandable system of control and governance in these territories. It's very difficult to do, but it should be done. And one more thing I want to stress is personnel and property. After the results were declared, many councils will be invalid, and there should be a process of firing the personnel and then hiring new personnel and the new united communities. And the best staff, they should be proposed new positions, jobs, and the rest should be fired, and that should be done in a proper way according to the law. And one more topic is property. There's a lot of property in bad condition. Part of it, there's no documents for this property. That's why newly united communities should do everything possible to control this property, and I addressed the newly elected heads. There's a law on the local government that envisages the competition for the positions in the local governance, and that's they should remember about it, and they should hire the personnel today. And as to the budget, it's the most difficult issue, because till the 1st of January, they can't properly regulate this issue, how to solve this issue in the united communities that continue to be composed of many territorial communities. And there are some possibilities how to solve this issue, and working groups with the participation of experts, they work on this issue. And the last one, there are many acute issues now, and that's why we propose that in each oblast there should be a, we may say so, anti-crisis group where experts and experts of registration bodies work, so in order that they can provide consultations to newly formed communities and help them in their work. If there are some laws, they should think how to change these laws, and they should propose some changes to the law and bring these changes to Kyiv. So the first stage, we overcome the first stage, and we should succeed in the second stage. So Mykola Ivanovich, he works as a head of village council, and he realized this, and he, before the process of unification of communities started.
Thank you. Good morning to everybody. The topic of today's discussion is very topical. It's very important for the destiny of Ukrainian village. And Anatoliy Tkachuk is a real patriot, and is a scientist from capital letter. He actually announced the first stage, which not everybody could pass. It's very important for us to understand that those are the first elections where the elections were, let's say, free of different political coloring, on the majority basis. The authority should be given back to the people, and those who voted under new legislation have to to start to implement their functions as the leading body to commit as little as few mistakes as possible. In Europe, actually proved, especially our neighbors' Poles, they proved that where we have the strong self-governance, those countries, the agrarian economy is going to develop very quickly. Unfortunately, we have a lot of small communities which can can operate on their own. It's very difficult for them to understand what positive could be brought by the union of the communities. And there are no alternatives to what there were. Some of the unifications took place in very fast manner, and those who actually addressed the cabinet ministers and the regions with their plans, they did not. Could not actually take part in the elections for different reasons, and the problems have been aggravated. Not everybody had enough finances at the necessary levels. That's why we face the task as soon as possible to form the leading body of the communities, to teach them how to orientate for their proper, let's say, fulfillment of their duties. But we cannot do without the help on the part of the state here. Anatoliy mentioned about legislative base, but unfortunately today the land is the main condition for the existence of the village communities. The majority of the village communities do not have the layout of the general plan, and they do not have, they have no control over the plots of land, and that's why a lot of corruption, and we have to do everything possible to do away with that once and for good. Because land is very important for the country, especially for the village communities today. The very big part of that is not controlled at all. Those who called us and still calling us, they ask one question: to introduce as soon as possible amendments to the land legislation and to give the rights to the united communities, and the rest at least to agree upon the use of those lands which belong to the existing communities today. There may be a big mistake which was committed until these elections. There was some political pressure at different level because everybody would like to keep their own powers, and especially agri holdings or some powerful Ukrainian companies, and to nominate their own chairman. And when we have the market of land, so that they could have control over the lands. So there are quite a few negative things when the people try to interfere in this election process. Those people who do not have the right to do that. According to our calculations, 35% of the village chairmen have been replaced. This is a very worrying situation, because a lot of new people come who have to be taught how to do their work, and we implement this kind of we actually plan to establish some training center to train those chairmen and those leaders to continue this process. About 1,000 have united, and according to the new legislation, only 159 of those communities were involved in the election. What about the rest? Especially when we're talking about some kind of mixed communities, for example, 2 communities from one district and 3 communities from different regional districts. They are actually bordering on each other, but they are different. So we have to, the Verkhovna Rada has to pass a certain decision about the change of the borders between those districts. Only after that they can implement their idea of unification in practice. So another question arises: very important are financial issues. Today, the economy of our agrarian sector is very complex, actually they deal more with the cereal growth of the cereal crops, and the question arises: who feeds the country? So the foundation must be, or the emphasis should be placed on the small and medium-sized businesses. So far, we do not have a single strategy which could serve as a foundation for resolving those issues. We understand that without the government support, we cannot do anything. So we face a very important task. As soon as possible, it's necessary that the Verkhovna Rada adopts necessary draft laws, and those who already have their documented their plan of actions, those that they could implement those plans, and everybody who is going to be prepared, start from the new year, to take care of the elections in the newly formed communities, so that we could in decent way to complete this year and then show the results that this reform is going to save the Ukrainian village or countryside, will stop the outflow of the UN people to the urban localities, and will provide this possibility for further development. Thank you. I have several questions. I need some clarification of some of the things. On the one hand, the decentralization reform is in fact a basic one, but at the same time, the understanding of in the society is not always there. There is some kind of the things which they hear, but the general understanding is not provided. So, if we are talking about the unification of some of the communities, they have to have some resources to realize their rights. Well, land, we do not understand the status, the education, we do not have understanding, or the, let's say, other. And the communities have already united and have their authority. And conventionally speaking, they expect some result from them already tomorrow, but they do not have necessary tools. What we have to do? What do you think? How the situation is going to develop in the next few months? Do you think that at the local level should be some disappointed with this reform? So ideology is correct, but the methodological base, is kind of not really present there. So your comment on that issue, I would like to say, this is very far from the realistic situation, real situation. Well, I'm sorry. We communicate a lot with different people. I just communicated to you what they say regarding the status of demonstralization, so can provide a comment to explain to the public at large. Okay, speaking about legislation. Legislation is there. There is a law on local governance. All the communities have equal authorities. There is a law which is called the Budgetary Code, which reads that among the different, the equal powers in the localities, some of them have the resource to implement those or realize, others not. Then those authorities should be exercised on a higher level. So when we unite, so we become like the cities in original significance. So the same will apply to the new united communities. So far, we do not have institutional capability because before the elections, you didn't have those authorities. After the elections, they appeared, but you do not have the bodies which could realize those or exercise those rights. That's why 2 months on the one hand is not enough, on the other hand it's quite enough in order to establish or create such bodies. Another thing pertaining to the standards. Very often I can hear that let's invent some kind of standards, and under those standards we can actually allocate some money. This is not the true situation. In the government has some kind of finite amount of money, and if the government can allocate that amount of money for education, they do not have any more. So this money is subdivided by number of trainees, of the students or pupils, and in the average sum, which could be allocated to training of each of the person. And then we have to create the budgetary network. If you have this understanding, then the united communities, which are quite big, communities, they will have a possibility within the framework, within the limits of this standard. They will be able even to save some money, to reinvest the saved money to improve the level of education. As for the Minister of Education, do they agree with such an approach of the Minister of Health? Because I understand there are some problems if we're talking about the vision of situation at the local level, just to preserve the school, maybe to open a new school or the hospital, while the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Health, they have their own vision. Do those visions coincide? Is there some kind of agreed upon position of how the money is going to be allocated? The agreed position is the effective laws, which read specifically the regional importance localities when we are talking about the education and the healthcare sectors. This will be taken by the local authorities on the level of regional importance, and the United Communities will have their board which will take care of that, and the position of the Minister of Education and Health is not important here. So the money will go to the regional or the district level. When we are talking about the district level, the money will go to the communities. They have this money and they do not have to ask anybody else. Another story that this possibility to keep that money and swiftly use that money. This is another question. But there are expert, let's say, communities. There are ministries and specialists who have to very quickly to provide any kind of methodological, organizational, or legal support to bring everything to order there. In a year from now, you will talk about that and say, oh my God, how stupid or how weak we were, we didn't know how to do that. But this will be the picture a year from now. I would like to add a few things. There are some graphic examples when the community is capable of doing something. They actually can take care of the medicine education or medical aid education using their own money. The another story that the company are freshly united, they do not know how to do that, and they will face some difficulties, and that's why we need some methodological support. There are some downs, what you were talking about in your question. We started care of the education and medical reform, not taking into consideration the unification or the communities of this or another district. And definitely we have the full-fledged, let's say, a school with 300, 400 pupils. More money is required for such school, but it doesn't mean that in all these villages we are going to close the existing schools or hospitals. They're going to exist, but the decision will be taken on the higher level. And here, very important is the budget of the local communities. Thank you very much. First of all, it's very good that you prepared a very good presentation where you actually explained all the specific issues and infographics, and you clarified some of the things. I believe that if you're talking about each of those cases, we can actually dedicate a special press briefing discussion or whatever. So you can regard this as a proposal on the part of the UCMC to continue this discussion. This number one. Number two, you really would like to have the real examples on the part of those communities who decided to do themselves something about this present available situation. We hope that there will be some cases when the remaining communities which are still doubtful whether it's worthwhile or not, maybe we can also contribute and to help with the organization of the history of the successful cases or press briefings or press conferences, because this reform is basic and fundamental, upon which much depends if we're talking about success of the rest of the reforms.